Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our Sea Otter exhibit. My name is Jenna. I'm one of the naturalists here at the Monterey Bay Aquarium. Over on the left-hand side of this second floor mezzanine behind some of you all. Hello, welcome. You're joining me at a great spot at a great time as we are getting ready to feed our lovely southern sea otters in just another few moments. As we do get ready for this feeding, I'd like to ask everyone up close to those windows, let's take one big step back away from those windows for me and go ahead and encourage little ones up close, little ones and folks with mobility devices, head on up to those windows. If you're on the taller end, maybe take a few more steps back so you're standing on the back side of this exhibit space. This way we can set up a sort of stadium-style standing arrangement for all of us to enjoy the fun. Now, no matter where you are, first and second levels of this exhibit, if you look at the monitors up above those windows, they are showing a live camera view of this entire feeding, so no matter where you are, you'll still be able to enjoy all of the fun. So again, folks, just keep an eye on your surroundings, consider rotating on through. I want to make sure everyone can view the excitement because it is always a wonderful time with our otters here. Additionally, when you're taking your photos and videos, let's just make sure we have turned off the flash on all of those picture-taking devices. We are a flash-free facility here at the Monterey Bay Aquarium. Your photos will turn out better, and our animals will certainly thank you for it. Now, in just another few moments, our Sea Otter care team members will be stepping out to start us off with this feeding. As we're waiting for them to join us, and as we go on, once this feeding does begin, I'd like you all to just ponder a question for me. Think about why our otters are here at the aquarium. What role do they serve here at the aquarium? Because they're not just here to look cute and cuddly. These otters actually have some pretty important roles they're able to serve right here with us. So I'd like you to think a little bit about that. Feel free to share your thoughts with me at the end of this feeding, and I'll tell you more about that as we go on. Now, in the meantime, as we are waiting for our Sea Otter care team members to join us, I'd just like to introduce you to our 4 otters on exhibit. We do have all female otters, all rescues. These otters have been deemed non-releasable by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, which just means due to medical or behavioral reasons, they're remaining here for continued human care. So on exhibit today, we have Kit, Ruby, Selka, and Ivy. I start with Ivy because she's the easiest to identify, in my opinion. She's our blondest sea otter on exhibit. Blonde fur around her face, her chest, even a little bit by her flippers. If my view is not mistaken, I believe that's Ivy over on the far right side of the exhibit now drifting through the water. Now, we also have Selka on exhibit. She's really easy to tell apart from Ivy because she is our most brunette sea otter, so brown fur all around. She's one of those 3 otters in the very middle alongside the deck of the exhibit now. Now, that leaves us with Kit and Ruby still to identify, and it's kind of tricky because they both have a hint of blonde around their face, but mostly brown fur all across. Now, the big difference with Kit and Ruby is that Kit is going to be our longest and largest sea otter, and Ruby is going to be our smallest sea otter. She's actually our youngest here at the aquarium, 7 years old. She joined our raft just last year. So it's easy to spot her being the smallest in this space. But keep those identifiers in mind and see if you can keep track of which otter is where as we go on with this opportunity here. Now, right on cue, our Sea Otter care team members are stepping out onto the exhibit right about now. And we're going to have a very exciting feeding this afternoon because this is going to be an enrichment feeding. That big crate our trainer is holding, she's going to toss out some fun items to our otters, and those items are stuffed full of tasty, tasty food. Now we're starting with some of our ladder toys right here. The way this works is we want to ensure our otters get a well-balanced diet every single day, but we want to make sure that while they're here at the aquarium, they're remaining mentally and physically stimulated. So this is why we have those buckets and bits of matting strewn across the water right now, floating in the environment. This is a way for us to change up their exhibit space and break up their routine to give them different things to interact with. But then to continue that mental and physical stimulation during their very feeding sessions, that's where these enrichment toys come into play. You see, in the wild, otters are commonly eating invertebrates, animals without backbones, instead protected by a hard outer shell, like crab, abalone, sea urchin. Now here on exhibit, notice they have not gotten any of the hard-shelled food items. This is because we have found out the hard way the nearest hard surface to crack them open are the shiny windows you're looking through now. So to avoid those windows getting scuffed up and scratched by that forging technique, we can see one of our otters on the left-hand side banging that around the window right this very moment. We keep the squishy parts of the food on exhibit and save those hard-shelled food items for behind the scenes. But to still allow these otters to tap into those foraging behaviors on exhibit as well, that's where these enrichment toys are useful. We can stuff them inside the clear plastic tubing all looped together so they can work at getting that food out, but the material, it allows them to do so in a way that does not damage the exhibit around them. So once our otters finish going through those ladder toys they're working on right now, our Sea Otter care team member is standing by on the deck with even more items to offer them. When she brings those out, you might recognize a few of them if any of you happen to have a pet dog at home. You might see something like a Kong toy. Maybe you use those stuffed with peanut butter for your very own pets. Same exact tools we're able to use here with our sea otters. That way they can practice those foraging techniques, get their fill, but keep their exhibit nice and clean. Now, this is only one of several feeding opportunities our otters do receive throughout the day here at the aquarium. They get at least 3 scheduled feedings and a number of snacks in between. This is because these otters have quite a hefty appetite. Out in the wilds, they're eating about 25% of their body weight every single day, which for a human equates to about 40 cheeseburgers in a 24-hour period. There's a lot of food. I know I am not up to that challenge, but these otters certainly are. Now, the reason why, there's some banging action from one of our otters right alongside the middle of the deck, tapping that on the rock. We're getting that food out. Expert foraging behavior we're seeing. Now, the reason why these otters have to eat so much food is because, unlike other marine mammals that have a layer of blubber or fat for insulation, these otters don't. They're just relying on a dense fur coat. So the first step is to generate enough energy and warmth inside your bodies, which these otters are able to do from that food intake, and then they'll use their dense fur coat to keep that warmth trapped within. And they do have the densest fur in the entire animal kingdom. One southern sea otter can have up to 1 million hairs per square inch of their body. Now keep in mind, the average human has about 100,000 hairs on their head total. So take all of the hair off of your head and 9 of your best friends, compress that to the size of a postage stamp, and that is 1 square inch of a sea otter's fur. Very dense fur. Now, the density of this fur is what made these otters so valuable during the fur trade of the 1800s. Unfortunately, that demand was too great for these otters to keep up with, and they were hunted to near extinction. Eventually, a raft of only 50 sea otters remained. Now, this raft was located off of Big Sur, a place not too far from us here in Monterey Bay, and the communities in that area took action to protect that raft. They advocated for things like the Endangered Species Act or the Marine Mammal Protection Act, which gave these otters a chance to recover. And today, we can see 3,000 on our coastline. 3,000 is, of course, a great improvement, but we still want to see more growth of that number as well. And that is where our exhibited otters come into play. Now, you might have noticed just a moment ago, our Sea Otter care team member was offering more of those fun toys to our otters to interact with. These silicone balls and other shaped items, they can bang them around again on the windows and the rockwork, continue receiving some tasty food items. I may not have mentioned before, but on the menu today for the squishy parts we're giving our otters, we have some shrimp, squid, and clam tongue, a good variety. Especially remember, when you consider we're feeding them so much food throughout the day, this gives them a nice, well-balanced diet here and a variety of their favorite choices. Now, I was just about to say why our otters are here at the aquarium, what role they serve, and how they're able to support their recovery. So I started this feeding by asking you all, what sort of roles do you think our otters serve? Well, there's 2 of them. Right here on exhibit, our otters serve as ambassadors for their species, teaching all of us about what it truly means to be a southern sea otter, as well as how we humans relate to them and their populations out in the wild. After all, they are a coastal species, so our actions here on land are very closely related to them. Now, this can contain things like the fossil fuels we use that generate storms and generate surge in the water that might tear up the kelp forest these otters in. Or maybe it's simply the chemicals we use on land that join the runoff that pollutes coastal waters. So we humans, even if we seem to be far from shore, if we're coming from out of state, there are still connections we have to these coastal species. Now, being here at the aquarium, we're able to learn from these otters and these relationships. That way we can contribute to a healthy relationship moving forward into the future. That fur trade has ended, and every day we're moving towards even more positive relationships with these otters. But that is not all. As I said, 2 roles our otters serve here at the aquarium. Now, this first role, being ambassador, is really helpful in improving the relationship between ourselves as humans and these otters. But there's another role these otters serve that directly supports the recovery of wild populations too. You see, when our otters are not on exhibit teaching us what it means to be a sea otter, well, they spend time behind the scenes teaching other otters what it means to be a sea otter too. The Monterey Bay Aquarium has a rescue and rehabilitation program that allows us to care for injured or orphaned otters that come through our doors. In the case of those orphaned otters, in the wild, they would be relying on their mothers for the first 6 to 8 months of their lifetimes, learning all the skills they need to survive independently one day. Now here at the aquarium, they are able to get that chance by being paired up with these exhibit otters you're looking at now, who are able to serve as surrogate or foster mothers for their pups. They'll teach them all the skills they need to survive, like diving for their food or grooming their fur. Remember, very dense fur, so it's important to keep that nice and clean. And of course, once they've gotten their food, they'll teach them how to crack open the hard country shells as well. The best tool is the nearest heart surface, as we've seen demonstrated throughout this entire session. Now, once those pups have learned all those skills, they're released into the wild with a set of flipper tags and transmitters so our team can track their movements and see how they're thriving out in those wild populations. For the most of this program's history, we released these otters to Elkhorn Slough, a wetland just 20 miles north of our aquarium. And we found through our studies, 60% of the otters in Elkhorn Slough today come from those pups or their very own descendants. Future generations, we've already seen proof of them benefiting from this program and from the work we do here at the aquarium, which I have to say is supported by all of you simply being here today. We would not be able to do this work without your support, so thank you truly for being here. I know all of our otters on exhibit would like to thank you as well. We saw a moment ago a little tussle happening from our otters on the left-hand side. These otters are just like us. They love to interact and play around with their friends, their neighbors. So we're often seeing a lot of that activity right here on exhibit as well. Now, folks, at this point, these otters are starting to wrap up with their food here. I'm going to go ahead and jump off microphone. But if you do have any questions about these amazing animals or anything else at the aquarium, or if you'd like to talk more about what these otters do here at the aquarium, I asked you that question. Come on over, share your thoughts with me. In the meantime, thank you so much for joining me, everyone, and have a wonderful rest of your day at the Monterey Bay Aquarium.